Is Germany's military ready for war? Well, postcards like this are a clue. They've been arriving at homes across the country in recent weeks. This is a personalized recruitment card. That's our colleague's last name. This is a sign of the coming push to grow Germany's military significantly. Berlin wants roughly 80,000 more active duty soldiers in the next decade as the threat from Russia grows. That's a whopping 45% growth from the current size of the force, but it doesn't want to conscript them. They're volunteers. The problem is recruitment has never been easy for Germany's modern military. Now it's preparing for this massive push at a time when the country's labor force is tightening and companies are struggling to find skilled workers. Can the military really compete with the private sector? What will it take to persuade future soldiers to sign up? Is it really just about pay, or is there something more to it? The answers could have consequences for all of Europe. The German military, also known as the Bundeswehr, roughly counts 180,000 active duty soldiers. That's below average for NATO members. The prospect that German soldiers could be called on to help allies has become increasingly plausible since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The problem is Germany is struggling to meet its current recruitment goal. It's supposed to be at 203,000 active duty soldiers by 2031, but progress has been slow. The government's new plan, the details of which are gradually coming out, now makes that goal look tame by comparison. It wants an additional 60,000 new soldiers on top of that old goal. Essentially 80,000 new active duty soldiers by 2035. Here's how it's supposed to work. Beginning in 2026, the government will send letters to men and women between the ages of 18 and 25, asking them about their willingness to serve. Men will be required to return an answer. For women, it's optional. Those considered good candidates will be required to meet with military representatives, but not to commit to anything. The hope is that enough volunteers will emerge through this process and that over time, more will extend their stay with the military, swelling its ranks. The government is expected to raise the pay for these volunteer soldiers, the first step in making the job more attractive. But will that be enough? Well, for one, demographics aren't in the country's favor. Germany's baby boom generation is firmly in retirement. The modern workforce is getting smaller. According to one recent study, there's already about 500,000 positions that can't be filled due to a lack of workers. By 2028, according to this study, that could balloon to 770,000, meaning everything from daycare workers to machine builders. And in theory, someone receiving this postcard will decide which direction they want to go. Even before this new push, the Bundeswehr has tried ramping up recruitment. Part of that has been simply increasing outreach and modernizing it. The Bundeswehr is active in social media. It now streams popular web series on YouTube about soldiers. Recruiters attend not just job exhibitions, but special conventions for gamers and even fitness buffs. The military has meanwhile regionalized its recruitment approach, allowing local recruiters to depart from the national script and even craft their own messages to their regions. It's even created pop-up lounges, including a beach lounge on the Baltic coast. But to compete with the private sector, the military believes the service itself has to be more attractive. Higher pay is, of course, a good start for filling any labor gap. The Bundeswehr had already expanded its recruitment bonuses in recent years. A significant raise in pay for new recruits, as reports suggest, would obviously be attractive. But research and surveys have shown that for younger generations, pay is only one part of a fuller package. Training and development, work-life balance, sense of purpose, all of these are also important to the younger workforce. And so the Bundeswehr is trying to improve in these areas. For one, it's trying to be more transparent about career progression and what certain qualifications and career paths mean for future development and pay for their soldiers. The idea being to give the ranks a clear view of what's in store for them and to motivate them to stick around longer. Its military academies, which train officers, are putting new emphasis on subject area expertise. Think areas like natural sciences, math, technology, instead of just military-specific applications. For enlisted, the Bundeswehr has begun offering to keep paying them while they earn the equivalent of a high school diploma. It's also introduced new grades for enlisted soldiers, corporal and staff corporal, again meant to expand opportunities within the ranks. Another goal of the Bundeswehr is to minimize disruption to new recruits. According to one parliamentary report, some 40% of recruits who left service before 6 months complained that training was too far from home. That 6-month period appears to be decisive. The Bundeswehr has reported losing about 1/4 of recruits during training in recent years. In response, it's fusing its 2 3-month training courses, basic training and advanced training, together in one location, so that there's less need to move around. It's also made it easier to begin training, allowing recruits to begin the very next month. I call that greater flexibility or just less time to sit around and perhaps find an alternative. The Bundeswehr is meanwhile building new barracks, and it says it's trying to improve work-life balance by offering alternative work options from part-time to telework, even mobile work. Then there's the ongoing effort to make the service even more attractive to women. The Bundeswehr wants women to represent 30% of its combat units by 2030. Currently, that figure is around 13%. To boost recruiting, the Bundeswehr has deployed everything from targeted advertising to more female recruiters to special events like Girls' Day. They've hosted other events for female soldiers to network with one another. Some of those efforts can be clumsy. That parliamentary report criticized the use of the word girl to describe so many events for women. But there are also practical aspects the service is trying to address, including improving clothing and body armor that better fits a woman's physique, down to the weapon itself. Some women, for example, find a shorter version of the G36 assault rifle easier to handle. Unfortunately, that weapon is often unavailable during training. Recruitment of women, more flexible working options. The private sector is also focusing on these areas. But the military is, of course, not a normal employer. Soldiers are salaried government employees. They receive free health care, and of course, they can be deployed to combat. Facts that are not lost on new recruits. And with all the changes I just mentioned, from education and training to recruiting and emphasis on women, there are ongoing issues in the German military. Female soldiers still say they face discrimination and sexual harassment. And there's still a gaping lack of female role models at the highest levels of the military. Part-time and telework are good options on paper, but they're often limited in practice. And it's often difficult convincing superiors to allow different working hours. Housing is still a challenge for soldiers to find who are too senior for the barracks. And even those new grades we talked about, corporal and staff corporal, they haven't been employed as much as expected after their introduction. The good news is the military should have plenty of resources to address these problems in the future. Germany's defense budgets are projected to rise steadily in the coming years. But is more money automatically the solution? There's also another factor that we haven't touched on: Germany's cultural resistance to the military. Parts of society rejected the new West German military when it was first founded in 1955. For many, Cold War militaries in both the former West and East stood for conscription, unwelcome authority, and the potential for a new conflict. The end of the Cold War brought considerable change, including the merging of the former East German military into the Bundeswehr. But a general ambivalence continued. Unlike peer nations such as France, Britain, and the US, Germany's military history is ruptured, you could say. Much of it is essentially off-limits, making the historic connections between families and former veterans and the military, in many cases, impossible. In 2005, former German President Horst Köhler criticized his nation's friendly disinterest toward its armed forces. Even with the suspension of conscription in 2011 and the transformation of the Bundeswehr into a smaller deployment force, recruitment has remained difficult, and attitudes difficult to calculate. Polls do show a general society-wide appreciation for the military, but another recent survey showed a clear majority unwilling to defend the country with a weapon. To what extent are better pay and benefits, then, able to overcome a society-wide reluctance? In a way, there is a backup plan. Should the military be unable to fill its ranks through volunteers, it would still be able to reintroduce conscription. But there is still an optimistic case for recruits making the difference. For one, the stakes are higher than they have been in a long time. The current situation in Europe is arguably without parallel since the Cold War. The resources are also there for the military, as they haven't been in some time. And finally, even if the German military isn't really comparable to the private sector, the current situation in Europe means that in a way it does offer one thing that many companies can't: a strong sense of purpose. Whether that and a host of new benefits will be enough to regrow the military will be a question for the coming decade, and perhaps a test case for other parts of the world. How, or even whether, a liberal society can rebuild its armed forces without a return to conscription.